Hello, Women Helping Women. I am so excited to introduce you to the workshop tonight that I'm hosting, Speak Up, Your Business Needs You. My name is J.R. Steele, and I am the proud owner of the International Public Speaking Institute, where we develop tools and talent to help people deliver their best speech ever. As I'm saying, we have a very exciting workshop. I am hoping that this workshop is going to really resonate with those of you who may be a little afraid and maybe have anxiety when you think of the idea of standing up in front of an audience. And even for those of you who may be more seasoned speakers, I think that there's going to be some ideas in this workshop that can even speak to you. Before we begin, I want to let you know that those of you who stay with me all the way till the end, I have a special freebie for you. I will be offering you free access, 7-day free access to Speech Formula, which is a web application that's like TurboTax for speakers. The application, through a series of steps, guides you through the speech writing process. And when you reach the end, your speech, your cards, your slides are finished. So I will offer you a free access for 7 days and a workshop that'll be 1 hour, and it'll tell you how to write a speech. So stay with me till the end, and I will give you the details on that. To begin, I want to ask you, how many of you have ever said these words?
I hate public speaking. Suddenly I'm someone I don't know. I just hate being looked at. There must be something in my nose. My hair is bad, my fly is open, I'm wearing the wrong clothes. I am hiding in the bathroom because my stomach's not quite right. When I think of standing up to speak, I'm paralyzed with fright. I hate public speaking. Suddenly I'm someone I don't know.
Be careful. That tune is catchy. I would venture that many of you out there have said those words, because public speaking is something that in research study after research study after research study, people say, you know what, this is something that scares me and I have anxiety about. So I would like to ask you a few questions. First off, how many of you are the face or an important face of your business? How many of you communicate daily as a representative of your business? Is that you? Yes? How much of what you communicate impacts your bottom line? How many of you deliver speeches on behalf of your business? And how many of you are terrified of public speaking and want to conquer it? Well, today, I hope that with what we learn, we can unleash your public speaking superpower and invest in a better you. There's a quote that Warren Buffett states that really I believe in wholeheartedly. He says, whether you like it or not, get very comfortable with public speaking. It's an asset that will last you for 50 to 60 years. And it's a liability if you don't like doing it. So if you can just get comfortable with it and conquer it, my goodness, it's going to help you in more ways than you can even envision. There's 2 points that we're going to cover in this workshop. Number one, Why does public speaking matter to my business? And two, how can I speak up and show up for my business? Let's begin with the first question. Why does public speaking matter to my business? Let's begin with a little survey. Think about this for a moment. What are the top 8 skills employers need and aren't finding? I'll tell you what, before I show those answers to you, why don't you take a moment and answer those for yourself? Just take out a sheet of paper, grab a sheet of paper, we'll wait for you. Grab a sheet of paper and see how many skills you think employers need. Maybe some of you have actually hired people and you know this to be true from firsthand experience. Maybe you're someone who's lacking some of these skills and your business needs it. So do a little brainstorming and think what comes to mind. Just pause the video if you need a moment to write that down. Great. Let's see what the answer says. In a survey that involved 500 managers by Adecco State of the Economy, they found these were the top 8 skills. Now, some of these skills are hard skills and some are softer skills, but they say writing. Public speaking is number 2, data analysis, critical thinking and problem solving, attention to detail, communication, leadership, teamwork. All of these are things that employers need and aren't finding. So obviously, I think you can see why I believe that public speaking can help your business. But let's take a little deeper dive into the classic communication model. This is the fundamental communication model that was actually developed by Aristotle. And guess what? There's a lot of people that try to define communication in general. And there's about 546 different definitions of communication. Communication, it has so many variables because we have to deal with when we communicate with someone else, what they perceive and where their mind is and whether or not they'll like what we have to say. And then maybe they're having a bad day. And we also have to take into consideration where we are and the type of day we're having and whether we're sick or we have some horrible news. So all of these variables impact whether a message is received and whether it's accepted and received in the way that the speaker wanted it to be received. So let's take a look at this model here for a moment. Do you see? We have the speaker. This is also could be referred to as the sender. We have the message and we have the audience. So think with me for a moment. When is the last time that you tried to send a message and it didn't get to the audience the way that you wanted it to? Can you think of when that has happened for you? It could be with someone you know very well, or it could have been with a stranger at a grocery store or something. Why wasn't that message received the way that you wanted to? Was it perhaps given at the wrong time? Was it perhaps you were too busy and you said it too quickly? Maybe you said it in the wrong way. Maybe the wrong emphasis was there. There's so many variables that can impact how an audience receives. So imagine if that message were designed differently. Would that impact how the audience would receive it? I think if you really think about it, there are definitely better ways to say something and better times to send a message. So yes, there's a lot that we could do if we could just empower ourselves to be able to design a message that resonates with our audience so that it's received the way that we want it to be received. So this communication model, I like to look at it. You know how there's that the Shrek movie that says ogres are like onions. They have lots of layers. When I see this communication model, I see so many layers. There are so many variables to how we communicate. And this is why communication is tough. But guess what? When you as an individual are trying to send a message to many different people, people with different cultural backgrounds, kind of like our group here, right? People with different levels, people of different backgrounds, people of different health. I mean, all things come together when you're trying to communicate a message. And so if you can actually communicate a message effectively with a diverse group of people, and you can think about the audience's needs, and you can design that message in a way that they open up to the message, guess what? There's a lot that you accomplished. And that says a lot about you. And the skills that you learn in learning how to do that can be really far reaching. They can impact your lives in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. So the benefits of learning to speak confidently and engage an audience are far reaching. It can help you, it can help your team, and it can even help your clients as you communicate with them. I'm sorry, I just flipped way ahead. Actually, that's the next slide. So the next slide that we have here is I would like to talk to you. Just think about it. How does your attitude about public speaking impact your business? Do you gain opportunities? Do you shy away from them? Do you lose opportunities? Are you even aware of the opportunities that could be presented if you would just open yourself up to the possibility of standing in front of an audience? Think about that for a moment. And guess what? What if, close your eyes for a moment and imagine that you could deliver a speech with confidence and captivate the audience. How could that impact your life? How could that impact your business? So we've now dealt with that first question. Why does public speaking matter to my business? So now I'd like to delve into how can I speak up to show up for my business? So let's get busy. You know, what makes a speech great? It's really boils down to two things: the delivery and the design. Another way to say that is what you say and how you say it. So the delivery, if you can conquer your fear, if you can master 10 delivery principles, and if you can make your visuals work, you're doing really well. And on the design side, if you can master the speech formula and establish a deliberate practice, you're going to deliver a great speech. So this is the core principle of the speech formula of the International Public Speaking Institute, our system that we use. These are the fundamentals. And what I want to do today is I want to just talk about a few different aspects of this. I won't have obviously time to go into all of it, but I'm going to give you some highlights about the delivery. Let's begin with the delivery, okay? And let's begin with ways to maybe conquer your fear. I have a little video I'd like to play for you here.
I saw a study that said speaking in front of a crowd is considered the #1 fear of the average person. I found that amazing. Number 2 was death. Death is #2? This means to the average person, if you have to be at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy.
Do any of you feel that way? Yes. So it turns out that there is a way that you can actually measure the amount of anxiety that you have. There's a fellow by the name of James C. McCroskey, and he, back in the 70s, came up with this personal report of public speaking anxiety. And guess what? On my website, you can take let's go over there for a moment. You can actually take the anxiety test for free, no problem, and you can actually build your speaker profile. So I would encourage you to do that. So if you wanted to do it right now, you can pause and go ahead and do that. And go to www.speechformula.com. Here's the website. And what you need to do in order to access that test is if you go to Speech Formula Login, I'm shrinking it up so that it could fit into the screen that I'm showing you. So please bear with me there. Once that comes up, if you don't have an account yet, all you have to do is click register as a new user, and you'll just put your email and create a password. Of course, you've got to use those rules that we do for passwords. And then your individual type would be, you can say individual or business, whichever works best for you. Okay. And so then you would say, I agree, and register. You'll get an email, just click that and bam, you'll have access. As soon as you do, you'll go to the profile. It'll actually come up on the profile page for you. And when it does, you can just fill out a couple of these areas. And then if you click this, My Speaker Profile, bam, there you are. How much anxiety do you experience? Take the test, and there's these questions, and you will come up with your anxiety level. I like to ask people to, when they begin working with me, test their anxiety level. And then after we work together and we go through the coursework, then I have them, after they've delivered a few speeches, test their anxiety level again. I see some amazing results, people who like literally change 50, 70 points. And that's something that I'm really proud of. So I hope that you can experience some of that same success. So once you learn what your anxiety level is, whether you're low, medium, or high, you can, begin to work on things and illuminate. I like to think of it, if we can understand why the fear exists, why the anxiety is out there, we can actually reduce that anxiety, and that can go a long way. It's kind of like turning the lights on to show that there's no boogeyman in the room. So let's look at, what are the top reasons that you think people are afraid to speak in public? Let's take a look here. This is out of I've interviewed over 200 people, and here's the results. Fear of the audience is number 10. Can you see that list? Fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. And the number one reason, if you go all the way down there, is fear of attention. Now, I'm an extrovert, so that actually really surprised me. I would not have thought that people like the light being on them, put the light on someone and someone focusing on them, that would be so fearful to so many people. But it turns out that that was the number one reason. But many of these are very similar if you look at them. Fear of making a mistake. At the end of the day, we really just don't want to be judged, and we don't want the attention being focused on us while we're under the microscope. It's an uncomfortable feeling. And I think that that's natural. Mark Twain tells us that there's two types of speakers: those that are liars, or those that are scared, and those that are liars. I always like that joke. I think that that's very funny. So let's look at the next, let's go to the next slide here. And I'd like us to look at, let's expose this fear a little bit more. Let's take a look here at what we feel versus how we react and respond. See, it turns out that research, and I've done a lot of research on this, it turns out that the research tells us that what we feel is actually dread. Much of that uncomfortable feeling that we're experiencing is actually dread. It's not necessarily fear. Isn't that interesting? And fear is a primitive emotion. And this is an emotion that we have to a perceived threat. Then we go down and there's actually phobias. A phobia is an unrealistic fear. This is when people actually let their fear get in the way of their life. I am a professor and I teach students public speaking, and there are some students who literally just drop out of the class and they'll do it 3 times. And in the school that I teach, that they won't get their degree without this course. So it's a fun, so there's many schools out there that require you to take this course. So if they're literally to the point where they're dropping out, this would be on the level of a phobia. Now, how we react and respond is a little bit different. When we have stress and we feel pressure that is exerted on a thing by another, that's stress. Now, anxiety is kind of like physical or verbal reactions that we have as a result of their physiological things that happen to us as a result of that stress. And guess what? Some people react by either they want to fight it, they want to flee, or they freeze. And so these are 3 reactions that people tend to have for stress. So stress is the response. Anxiety, it turns out, is the reaction. There's this great video I would like to show you now. This is one of my favorite videos. I mean, it just really shows you what's behind the science of stage fright. Michael Chow did a wonderful job.
Palm sweaty, heart racing, stomach in knots. You can't cry for help. Not only is your throat too tight to breathe, but it'd be so embarrassing. No, you aren't being stalked by a monster. You're speaking in public, a fate some deem worse than death. See, when you're dead, you feel nothing. At a podium, you feel stage fright. But at some point, we all have to communicate in front of people, so you have to try and overcome it. To start, understand what stage fright is. Humans, social animals that we are wired to worry about reputation. Public speaking can threaten it. Before a speech, you fret. What if people think I'm awful, that I'm an idiot? That fear of being seen as an awful idiot is a threat reaction from a primitive part of your brain that's very hard to control. It's the fight or flight response, a self-protective process seen in a range of animals, most of which don't species. But we have a wise partner in the study of freaking out. Charles Darwin tested fight or flight at the London Zoo snake exhibit. He wrote in his diary, "My will and reason were powerless against the imagination of a danger which had never been experienced." He concluded that his response was an ancient reaction unaffected by the nuances of modern civilization. So to your conscious modern mind, it's a speech. To the rest of your brain, built up to code with the law of the jungle, when you perceive the possible consequences of blowing a speech, it's time to run for your life or fight to the death. Your hypothalamus, common to all vertebrates, triggers your pituitary gland to secrete the hormone ACTH, making your adrenal glands shoot adrenaline into your blood. Your neck and back tense up, you slouch. Your legs and hands shake as your muscles prepare for attack. You sweat, your blood pressure jumps. Your digestion shuts down to maximize the delivery of nutrients and oxygen to the muscles and vital organs. So you get dry mouth, butterflies. Your pupils dilate. It's hard to read anything up close, like your nose. but long range is easy. That's how stage fright works. How do we fight it? First, perspective. This isn't all in your head. It's a natural, hormonal, full-body reaction by an autonomic nervous system on autopilot. And genetics play a huge role in social anxiety. John Lennon played live thousands of times, each time he vomited beforehand. Some people are just wired to feel more scared performing in public. Since stage fright is natural and inevitable, focus on what you can control. Practice. A lot, starting long before in an environment similar to the real performance. Practicing any task increases your familiarity and reduces anxiety, so when it's time to speak in public, you're confident in yourself and the task at hand. Steve Jobs rehearses speeches for hundreds of hours, starting weeks in advance. If you know what you're saying, you'll feed off the crowd's energy instead of letting your hypothalamus convince your body it's about to be lunch for a pack of predators. But hey, the vertebrate hypothalamus has had millions of years more practice than you. Just before you go on stage, it's time to fight dirty and trick your brain. Stretch your arms up and breathe deeply. This makes your hypothalamus trigger a relaxation response. Stage fright usually hits hardest right before a presentation, so take that last minute to stretch and breathe. You approach the mic, voice clear, body relaxed. Your well-prepared speech convinces the loud crowd you're a charismatic genius. How? You didn't overcome stage fright. You adapted to it. And to the fact that no matter how civilized you may seem, in part of your brain, you're still a wild animal. A profound, well-spoken wild animal.
So wild, ladies. Did you enjoy that? I think that that's just a fantastic little video that really explains and breaks down what's going on inside of us and makes it maybe a little bit less scary. Can you think of any speakers who were absolutely terrified to speak in public? Turns out some really famous people that we know as great speakers were. Let's take a look at this list. Who's afraid of public speaking? Adele, Winston Churchill, Gandhi. It turns out, they say that Gandhi literally walked off the stage one time and gave his assistant the speech. Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln. I mean, look at this list. Leonardo DiCaprio one time wished he wouldn't win an Academy Award or some type of an award so that he didn't have to give a speech. Hugh Grant, Joel Osteen. See, sometimes when we actually have a weakness and we have to put more effort into it, it turns out that that effort really matters because we put more effort in. Effort, when it comes to success, counts twice. So sometimes it may be, if we have to work a little harder, we may get a little better. Now I'd like to know what happens in your body. So how does your body react to that stress? Do you have any physiological tics? Do you have dry mouth and increased heart rate? Do your hands sweat? Do your armpits sweat? Do you get nauseous? How about stiffening of the muscles? Do you shake? I can tend to shake. I can shake normally, especially if I have coffee. I could be like this. It can be very embarrassing if I stand in front of an audience and I drink coffee and here I am talking about public speaking, my hands going like that. But we all have these things that happen. A lot of women tend to twist their legs and they may do redundant behavior like rocking back and forth or just some type of tic of some sort. Blinking or the wide eyes, the deer in the headlight look. How about stuttering, speaking too quickly or speaking too softly? Using filler words like yeah, huh? Let's talk a little bit about filler words, those filler words. What's your favorite filler word? Filler words are used an incredible amount these days. When I go to conferences, it's crazy how so many filler words are used. Literally, people begin their speeches. And I mean, these are conferences where people are spending a lot of money. And the keynote speaker will begin with 2, sometimes 3 filler words. I recently heard someone begin with, so. It is not uncommon for a speaker to begin with a filler word. And I think that they can do better than that. I think that if you are a keynote speaker, you should be able to get into your speech. I'm not saying a filler word here or there is an awful thing. It's human, but you should not begin with a filler word. We should exert a little bit more control than that. There's some fun things that we could do to actually reduce our filler words and to develop an awareness that we have for using them. Why don't you get a friend, or you don't even have to have a friend there. Just take a topic. Say, take a topic like books, entrepreneur, travel, anything you want, and take your phone and record your voice. And I want you to see how long you can go without using a filler word. If you use a filler word, bring your attention to it and clap. And if you use it twice, stop. See if you can get yourself to 2 minutes without using a filler word. That's a challenge for you. Why don't you go try that right now? Great job. Welcome back. How did you do? Were you able to speak for 2 minutes without using a filler word? This is a great activity. It could even be a drinking game, but this would be a great activity if you have children to do at the kitchen table during dinner, perhaps. You can all have fun and just choose any random topic. You can get a hat and put like 15, 20 different topics in it. If you look up impromptu speeches and Google impromptu speeches, you'll find a large list of impromptu topics and see how long you could go without using filler words. And this will raise awareness. Did you know that filler words, the reason we don't want to use them is they hurt our speech. They dilute our message. What if you were to go out and get a drink and you're spending good money for this drink and it's diluted? The soda that they put in there isn't full strength, or they just put so much ice and too much water and not enough of maybe the alcohol. I don't know. No, not enough of something. How do you feel if you pay for that and you have a diluted drink? But not very good. I know I can't stand them when they put too much ice in a soda or something. So I don't think audiences really appreciate a diluted message. We want to exercise a degree of control over our language, and we have to slow down, think, and not use filler words. The second reason that we don't want to use filler words is it decreases our speaker credibility. And people think that the speaker doesn't know the information. It turns out that people actually who are intelligent use more filler words. So sometimes it may be that you're thinking and you're actually in thought, but at the end of the day, that doesn't matter because the research shows that the audience perceives us as not knowing what we're talking about. That's according to Brennan and Williams. There's good news on the horizon, folks. So it turns out that the stress and the anxiety, guess what? It's a roll of the die. It can either help or it can hurt. That's up to us. Back in I believe it was 1905, Yerkes and Dotson came up with a law, and they said that the more important our performance is, the higher our arousal is. So when we have a performance that has to do with public speaking and it matters to us, our arousal increases. And the fact that we want to do a good job actually causes us to work harder to do that good job. And that's a good thing. So that's how it helps us. But that's only until a certain point. If you go too far, too much anxiety, then it can actually harm the performance and bring it down. We see this in the Olympics. I love in the Olympics watching the gymnastics. Do any of you enjoy the gymnastics? Any sport that like really requires that precision. When the nerves are very important in those sports, and if the athlete has too many nerves, sometimes it can really impact their performance in a negative way. But by golly, when they get it right, and they land it, there's few things as beautiful as that in my book. More good news. The research says that you can reduce your anxiety. How can you do that? Here's a few different ways. Why don't you take a look at that list? Can you read that? It's a good thing to know your audience, know your room, check it out. This is according to Dally. Practice in front of people. One of the most important things that you could do. Practice. Man, you can, in today's day and age, you can even Zoom or do a Skype with someone and actually practice, your speech over the phone. Practice is really important, but practicing in front of people is more important. People, though, who have more anxiety, it turns out that they will play with their slides rather than actually standing up in front of someone and practicing, which is probably the most important thing that you could do. I believe that engaging your audience, and research I've found is that when you do special things it's almost like getting a special present for someone, you want to give it to them. So if you embed some really engaging activities and fun activities and maybe a reward or a gift that you give people into your speech, guess what? That actually makes you more excited to give it, and it makes your anxiety reduce. When you have a clear point and purpose, this matters a lot because you understand why you're there and you're connected to that message in a very real way, and it matters to you. So there's so many different ways. Personal stories. You got to tell a good personal story. And these personal stories these are moments, most of the time when someone gives a personal story, it's the moment where it's the best moment in a speech. I find repeatedly that this is what happens. Those moments that we engage our audience, either with an activity or with a personal story, those are the best moments of the speech. And guess what happens when we do that? The speaker relaxes and they actually become, much more at ease with the words that they're saying. Let's now move on to some public speaking myths. Public speaking is my passion, and it is crazy over the years how many people have given me ideas that they are sure that I tell everybody, and at the end of the day, they are nothing more than old wives' tales, and they do not actually work. And there's a lot of these ideas out there. So let's take a look at this picture. Can you see this? Many people, it's like, I think one of the most popular myths out there. And many people say, imagine the people naked or in their underwear. That's just rude, don't you think? Let's take a look at some other myths. And it's rather distracting. So imagine the audience naked or in their underwear, avoid eye contact altogether, look over their heads. Could you imagine if you went out to dinner with someone that you cared about or were attracted to, and they looked at you and they spoke over your head and said, "Oh, I love you." Could you imagine? Look at what I'm doing right now. I'm looking over the camera, and what does that look like to you? Imagine that this is an intimate conversation. Well, the audience feels the exact same way if you look over their heads. Now, let me give you one instance where this may not be true. If you've got a large audience with lots of lights, perhaps the audience won't be able to tell so much. But that's actually very disturbing to me because I feed off of the audience's energy and I want to actually see that eye contact. The eyes are the window to a person's soul. A speech happens live, and the reaction of your audience is so very important. You want that eye contact. So take a look at these other myths and see whether you thought that they were a fact or a myth. Sometimes people think that you have to memorize your whole speech. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't want to. If it's too memorized, then you're kind of looking up and over to the right where we store ideas and things, and people kind of look like they're a bit crazy. A mistake will not destroy a speech. Honestly, you're human. Sometimes a mistake can be your brightest moment because it can allow you to come back and people will go, wow, that's a pretty impressive character. So there's a lot of myths out there. Don't let yourself fall prey to them. There's 5 tips that we could do to reduce our anxiety. Let's take a look at this list. So the first thing is imagine yourself nailing that speech. There's a lot to be said for positive thinking, right? Imagine yourself nailing the speech. There's some research that was done where they actually had athletes. I think it was before I think the first time they did it was the 1980 Olympics. It started in the 60s, but then they tied it to the Olympic Games. And so I think it was 1980 Winter Olympic Games. And they actually did a study. And those people, they would have the athletes think about where they were skiing and they're going down the slope and they'd see the entire course and run the entire course, visualizing it in their mind. And guess what? Those athletes who did, they performed better than those that didn't. Interesting, huh? So the night before a speech, rather than stressing and going, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, why don't you think about that and lie down and just imagine the applause. Go through the words, the things that you want to do, and just imagine it happening. Our breath is so very important. I practice yoga, and breath is so very, very important. They call it I can't say it right now. That breath is very important. So the next thing you want to do is think positively. Think, wow, yeah, this is great. I'm going to do a great job on this speech. Say positive thoughts for yourself. Don't degrade yourself. Practice power poses. Have you seen Amy Cuddy's work on how your body language can shape who you are? So if you stand there and you stand confidently, this can do a lot. The research shows that if you practice 3 minutes a day, I believe, I don't remember exactly how many minutes, but it's between 3 to 5 minutes a day for a week before an important interview or an important speech, guess what? You can fake it till you make it. So practice those power poses. And then the last thing is dress professionally. I just believe that dressing professionally puts the wind beneath your wings, and it helps so much. So dress professionally. So why don't you stand up right now and adopt a power pose? Do a Wonder Woman pose. I loved playing Wonder Woman when I was a kid. So stand up right now and adopt that power pose and let yourself just be confident and feel how you feel. If you close off and let yourself close off, see the difference of how you feel. Put your head down and try to close off and see how that feels. And then open yourself up and feel how much different it feels to just open yourself up and how much more confident you feel. Before any speech, one of the first delivery principles that I talk about is setting the stage. And I think that that's so important. And setting the stage for me begins far before you go into an audience. It happens at home when you're working on that speech. And that's why this whole concept of practicing those power poses and imagining yourself doing a really good job, matters so much. But there's a parable, and it was this Cherokee Indian. He spoke to his grandson, and he said, inside us all, there's two wolves that reside, and there's an evil wolf and there's a good wolf. And the evil wolf has fear and jealousy and anger and anxiety and all these negative things. And the good one has love and compassion and confidence and joy. And the boy said, well, Grandpa, which wolf wins? And the grandfather said, wisely, the one you feed. So I believe it's so important that with a speech, you get over yourself. Don't focus on your own nerves. Focus more on the audience and focus on yourself nailing the speech. And this will do so much to help you conquer your fear. One of the people that I am most impressed with is this woman by the name of Angela Duckworth. Have you heard about her? She wrote a couple of years ago the top-selling book called Grit, The Power and Passion of Perseverance. And she has actually come up with the formula for success. And part of that success, any type of success, involves a deliberate practice. And this is kind of called, the work of Carol Dweck as well, it's called the growth mindset. And there's 4 steps to it. And if you want to become better at anything, this is your business, this is public speaking, no matter, this is, running or yoga or whatever it is that you want to become better at, parenting, I don't care what it is. These are the 4 steps to establish a deliberate practice, which will send you on your way to becoming successful. And without it, you really have a difficult time improving. It really doesn't happen. So number 1, set a stretch goal. What is a stretch goal? It is a goal that makes you push out of your comfort zone. Set a stretch goal. Folks, those of you who may be seasoned and maybe see yourself as a really confident public speaker, there's always ways to improve. So I would encourage you to look carefully at these as I go through these, because this is one of those slides that can really benefit you. So set a stretch goal. Number 2, what does it say? Focus 100%. That means get rid of your cell phones. Like, don't be dealing with kids and this and interruptions. Focus 100%. We need that time to go deep. 3, secure quality feedback, especially when a speech comes to, people will just tell us, oh yeah, it was great, but we're not asking the hard questions. You got to get people who will give you the honest feedback that, hey, what wasn't great about it? What could have been better? And really, really offer you input so that you can improve. And some people, so many people are just kind. I find it's very hard to get people to give you quality feedback. And those people who give me quality feedback, oh, I hold them so close to me. And even if it hurts a little bit sometimes, I'm so very, very grateful for the input that they gave me, because that's how I improve. The 4th step is the most challenging. You've got to reflect and refine. And it takes a lot to actually take that feedback and go, hey, what do I need to do? How can I change it? What does it take to do to take and actually make that happen? And then you go through that cycle again. Then, based on that reflect and refine, you set a new stretch goal and move forward. So this deliberate practice is crucial. And in my book, Your Best Speech Ever, this is actually the steps to a deliberate practice is what I mean by your best speech ever. It's that you continuously improve. So every speech you reach for the next best. It's not just a one-time thing. Now I'm going to leave you. This is all, we're coming to the end of the section on the delivery. And I'm going to leave you with 5 tips to practice so that you can deliver a great speech. Number 1, familiarize yourself with the words of the speech. I suggest that you read the words of that speech 5 to 10 times. So just in the whole manuscript where it's written out, just read the words 5 to 10 times. And what happens is you will actually there will be a path. You will create a groove in your brain. And then when you get ready to speak, you won't have to look at the cards. The groove will already be there and it'll be set, and your words, your tongue will just go to that groove. Next, you want to choose the right inflection and emotion. Let me give you a little tip here. When you speak, there are 4 places where you can always let your voice do a roller coaster. My throat's a little sore today, so I'm not using my voice as much as I typically would. But whenever you have a conjunction and, or, but, these are natural places where I like to think of it that your voice just goes on a little roller coaster ride. We can do it with personal pronouns. His, her, I, personal pronouns. So conjunctions, personal pronouns. The next one is adjectives. The red boat, the purple panda, whatever it may be. So those adjectives will work. And then finally, dates. In 1999, a date is a natural place that you just let your voice do a little loop-de-loop. Okay? So there's a tip for that. Third, you want to identify keywords that you're going to emphasize. So choose what words you're going to emphasize in your entire presentation. I can say, I am going to do a great speech. I can say, I am going to do a great speech. Do you see? I'm choosing different words to emphasize. I'm going to do a great speech. Some people talk like that. I'm enunciating and I'm choosing which words to emphasize. I am going to do a great speech. There's so many different ways. There's an infinite number of ways that we can deliver a line. It's up to us to choose which words, give pauses, and choose that emphasis on those keywords. Focus on the beginning of the speech. If you don't, the beginning of the speech is the most important part of the speech for the audience. So focus on the beginning of the speech. Get those first words really down. And the last thing is practice in front of a mirror. That's a great way to begin. Once you feel confident practicing in front of the mirror, go ahead and see if you can record yourself. Once you get a little more comfortable, because it's hard to look at yourself on the telephone, on a video. It's really difficult to watch yourself. So practice in front of a mirror. Then the best key I could ask you to do is watch yourself on a video. That's where, because we are our toughest critic. Dale Carnegie, famous man, made many people deliver great speeches. He says that there are always 3 speeches for every one you actually get. The one you practiced, the one you gave, and the one you wish you gave. So that's true. Okay. So remember how we were talking about what makes a speech great? We have the delivery and we have the design. Well, the design is what I'm going to offer you with that special present. So I think we've taken enough time today going through this information, but the delivery and the design make the speech great. And the design is, I have a whole formula. It's a speech formula that I have proven. I've used it with thousands upon thousands of speakers, and it really, really works. It will ensure that you deliver a speech that resonates with your audience. So I hope that you will give me the opportunity to tell you more about that speech formula. So there were 2 points that we covered today. Why does public speaking matter to my business? And how can I speak up to show up for my business? Remember those words? I hate public speaking. Well, I'm hoping that with what you heard today, that you don't necessarily feel that way. And actually, you're willing to take that plunge, as Warren Buffett encourages us. Whether you like it or not, get very comfortable with public speaking. It's an asset that will last you 50 to 60 years, and it's a liability if you don't like doing it. So hopefully today you're feeling a little more inclined to conquer your fear. And I want you to know that the International Public Speaking Institute has some phenomenal tools to help you deliver a great speech. We have the books, we have the web application, and we have workshops that can even certify you so that you can have that proudly displayed on your wall that you are certified with the International Public Speaking Institute. Call me at any point if you'd like me to help you. I love to help people. I love to help women. And it's a joy. I feel like it is such an honor to be a part of people's process to develop their voice and speak up. I told you at the beginning that I would offer you something special at the end. So I am going to give you free access to the web application. And you can just click my best speech. You can enter the code my best speech ever when the payment page comes up. It's $24.99 a month for access to speech formula and $99 for a year. This access code will give you access for 7 days. And I would invite you on Thursday, February 28th at 1 o'clock. I am going to offer this free speech formula workshop. And it will tell you how to write a speech. So here's the code, HTTPS, the Zoom, and there's the number. If anybody needs me to give that or just send you the code, why don't you just register with me and feel free, just reach me at jr@speechformula.com, jr@speechformula.com. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this workshop today. And it's my sincerest desire that you can deliver your best speech ever. So thank you for visiting, and I wish you all great things with your business and in using your voice to scale your business. Goodbye.